Come, it's happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thanksgiving.
Okay, here we are. Just to review just quickly, here we go. We're going to learn that in the Mishnah, let me just get back to here. I think it's this one. Here we go. In the Mishnah, we just learned the Mishnah that discussed about the Mishnah we discussed regarding the taanis. The first 3 taanis, when it didn't rain, the Bezdin made 3 fasts, and those fasts you could eat at night, you could eat supper at night, you can do work throughout the fast, and throughout the fast you can bath, you can anoint yourself, you could wear shoes and have relations with your wife. It's not a severe fast. If after those 3 fasts, then they Bezdin would geyser 3 more taanesim, and those 3 taanesim means you have to stop. It's like a Tisha B'av. You can't eat at night, you can't do work during the day, and all the 5 inuyim are usher. If that didn't work out and it's still not raining, then there's the 7 fast. That's the final of the series of 13 fasts. Each one of them is Monday, Thursday, and it all starts from let's say Yud Zayin Mar Cheshvan. If it didn't rain in Israel to the 17th of Mar Cheshvan, they would continue to fast. And then finally, if it didn't rain, the final 7 fasts were very strange. That they blew. Besides the fast was like Tisha B'av, those 7 fasts they blew truah, a shofar, and they closed all the stores during the fast. Except on Monday, you could open it a little bit. On Thursday, the grocery stores were open. Nobody did work during those fasts. If after the 13 fasts, it didn't rain, that's it. All you did was accept it, and you didn't do business. Basically, you stopped construction, no marriages, nobody said hello to each other. But the Yechidim continued to fast. Okay, so here we are on the bottom of Yud Beis Amud Sheni by the Gemara. Okay, fascinating Gemara over here. One of the things that you're not allowed to do in the stricter fast was work, right? You're not allowed to work on the fast. So the Gemara says like this, Bishla Makulo, I understand everything, what you said. You can't take a bath, you can't go in, you can't have relations with your wife, you can't wear shoes. That makes sense. Isbu Tanik, because those have enjoyment to it, and therefore you don't do them on this type of fast. Rechitza, v'sicha, v'tashma shamita, those things. Avo, malacha, going to work. What's wrong with going to work? Tzarhu. For most people, it's a stress. So why should work not be permitted on those taanis tzibur? Amar Rav Chizda, Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Amar Kra, the pasuk says like this. Kachu tzayin. You have to designate, it talks about in the time of Yoel, where they designated it a fast. And the pasuk says, Kachu tzayin, call it a fast, Kiru atzara, call it a day of abstention, Isvu zakenim, a fast day is a gathering of the zakenim, a convention. This was the fast during the Tanakh, during Yoel's time, when there was a great famine. So we darshan ka'atzeres, that the fasts have to be like the Yontiv of Shvuas. Ma'atzeres osur basiyas malacha, just like Shvuas is not permitted to do work. Aftanas osur basiyas malacha. So also fast during those fast days, you're not allowed to do work. In other words, what the Gemara is saying here is that although going to work causes you stress, but still, we don't want you to work on these taanis tzibur because I guess they wanted you to have your mind thinking about the fast and maybe do tshuva. If you go to work, your mind will be off the fast. So that's what the pasuk says. It's like atzeres, it's like a yom tiv. So the Gemara says, "Ima atzeres meurta aftanas meurta." Then, if it has a din like a yom tiv, these fasts, so that you're not allowed to do work. Shvuas, you're not allowed to stop. You have to stop working even at night, the night before. Aftanas, so this fast also meurta. Nobody's allowed to go to work at night. Amar Rab Zeir said, the didime partially minei Rab Yirmiyah bar Abba. It explained to me clearly how you see it in the pasuk that only during the day you're not allowed to go to work. In fact, the night before you're allowed to go to work. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Isru zakenim. You have to. The pasuk says that the abstention of work is the time of the convention. Just like it has to be comparable to the time of the convention. And every Tanis, they had like a little convention. And what the convention was about was very simple. All the Jews gathered together and said, what did we do wrong? Why is God not bringing rain? So Ma Asif is the convention that they did on Tanis happened during the day. So the fast day is also the day. And therefore, you're not allowed to work during the daytime. So only at night you're permitted to go to work. Rashi says over here later that even on Tisha B'Av at night, technically you're allowed to go to work. Even at Tisha B'Av at night. During the day you shouldn't go to work, but at night you should. But Rashi says don't spread that word. It's not a good idea to go to work at night of Tisha B'Av after Kinnis. Anyway, so the Gemara asked the question of mitahara. Maybe you're not allowed to go to work in the afternoon. How do you know it starts in the morning? Rav Huna said like this: the Amar mitzafre kinufya. In the morning they had the convention. What did they do at this convention? Every fast day they had a convention. Amar Abaya mitzafra at palga diyoyma. From the morning till like lunchtime, of course they didn't eat lunch. They started to go over how the city is conducted. Is there Geneva, Gazela? Are people being greedy? They're trying to soul search everyone to see where is the problem here on the community. And beyond that, a quarter of the day, let's say after 12 o'clock, they start reading Chumash by Chal Moshe, and then they start reading Navi, like Dirshu Hashem, what we read on a Tanis. And then the rest of the day, Mekam Ve'elach, let's say from 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Ba'ina Rachmi, everybody's praised. They say Tehillim. Shnema, Vayikuma Amdam, Vayikru B'Sefer Torah Shem Lakem, Revias Hayoim, Revias Hayom Misvadim, Mishtachvim Lashem Lakechem. So a quarter of the day, they broke it down. The second part of the day is reading the Torah and they pray. So the first part of the day was the convention. So the pasuk says that the malacha is usher to do on a fast when the convention starts. The convention generally starts in the morning because that's the time before they want people to pray on a fast. You got to really soul search and to say to yourself, why is God bringing this? So they soul searched in the morning, and that's when people should not be working. And that's why the Tanakh says that Kiru Atzor, it's a day of not working, during the time of Isvu Zakanim, when the Zakanim, it means the Gedolei Yisrael, would gather the people to do a soul search. So now we go to Daf Yomi Amud Aleph, Eipachana. The Gemara still doesn't like it. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the first half of the day they prayed, and the second half of the day they had the convention. So the Gemara says, Loi Salka Daitrich, that doesn't make sense. The Ksiv Ve'elai Yosvu Kol Chored B'divrei Elokei Yisrael Amal Hagoyla. There's another fast, a day of tshuva in Tanakh. When they built the second Beis Hamikdash, so who do you think came up from Babylon, from Iraq, to help build the second Beis Hamikdash with Nehemiah? Let's call it the sweat hogs, so to speak. It wasn't the greatest Jews. In fact, when Nehemiah started to investigate who his crew is, he realized that most of them were married to Goyim. So he asked them to do tshuva and separate themselves from their wives so that they can do tshuva and be part of building the Beis Hamikdash. So that was Nehemiah, Ezra, and it's brought down in these psukim. And therefore he was giving Musar to the Olam. So the pasuk says he gave a speech to the group during the morning time, and in the afternoon, that's when Nehemiah said, I got up from my fast and I started to pray. So we see you're supposed to soul search in the morning and then you pray in the afternoon. So that perfectly makes sense. Before you start praying to Hashem, you got to start soul searching of why Hashem is bringing this upon you. And that's not just with a tzibur problem. It probably includes any type of personal problem. When somebody goes through a personal problem, before you start davening to Hashem, start making a cheshbon hanefesh, a soul search of where you need a change here and there. Amar Rav Papa Rav Chizda, new Gemara, and halacha Gemara. Kol shemin evil. If you're an aval, layalenu, or the fast day is because of a morning, kagoin, for example, Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is a fast day mourning the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. La'aval, in a regular mourner, lost his parents. Also, you're not allowed to take a hot shower, and you're not allowed to even take a cold shower. Nothing. That's the halacha. Kol shehu mishum tanig, but every time you're fasting, and it's not a fast because of mourning something. It's a fast, let's say, because the God didn't bring rain. So the whole reason why you're avoiding water is because you don't want to have enjoyment. So kagoin tanis tzibur, like the example I just said, a tanis tzibur, which is just a fast because there's no rain. So then it's a little bit lenient, because then bechamin also, you're not allowed to go into a hot bath. Or taking a cold bath, that's permitted, because that's not enjoyment. The whole point of that is not to enjoy yourself. So you very clear the difference. If you're an oval, no hot or cold is usher. If you're not an oval, but if you're fasting because of the tzibur, fasting of no rain, then you're not allowed to take a hot bath, but a cold bath is permitted. So Amar Rav Idi Bar Avim, Rav Idi Bar Avim said, Afana Nami Tinina, I have a Mishnah. The Mishnah said, in our Mishnah, is a fast about what? No rain. And the Mishnah said, you're not allowed to wash. Rechitz is not permitted. And then the Mishnah adds, V'noy alin es hamechatzois. They closed up the bathhouses. So there, it's clear, why did they have the Mishnah say that they close up the bathhouses? It must be that only hot water is not permitted. A cold water would be permitted. So that's why the Mishnah stresses that they close the hot baths. Because if the Mishnah meant that you're not allowed to do any shower, any washing, then the Mishnah should have said, Asa Berchitza, and that includes hot or cold. Amalei Abaya, so Abaya said, the Ibitzain and Asa. How would you want the Mishnah to talk? If the Mishnah holds that cold water would be Asa, what should the Mishnah say? Should the Mishnah say that they should shut down the rivers? You can't shut down public rivers. So how would the Mishnah express itself to include cold water? So the Mishnah had no other way to express itself. So it's not really such a proof. Amar Rav Shesha, who's the son of Rav Idi. Rav Idi brought the proof, and Rav Shesha, his son, is defending him. Abba, my father, Hachi Kashla. This is what he had a difficulty in the Mishnah, and that's why it's a proof to that concept that taking a cold shower on a regular tanis tzibur is permitted. Why? Michte. Let us see. Tanan, let's look at the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, by this fast day, also berchitza, you're not allowed to take a shower. And the Mishnah adds on, noyalin es hamerchatzois, you close bathhouses. So the question is, Lomeli, why do you have to add that extra word, closed bathhouses? Just write also berchitza, that it's not permitted to take any wash, and that would include hot or water and cold. Elalav shmamina, this must be the proof that the Mishnah holds wrong. Bechamin also, only hot water is asar. Bitzainen mutar, but it's bitzainen, cold water, then a cold bath would be permitted on a fast day. Now, Lema Messiah, let us bring a proof to the other direction. Remember, Rav Chizda said that if you're an Avel and or Tisha B'Av, you're not allowed to go into cold or hot water or cold water. Nothing. Now that it's not allowed to go any bath. So the Mishnah says, there's a brisa that says, Kol chayave tvilos tovlin kedarkan. If you have to, let's say it's Tisha B'Av, and you're a woman who went to the mikvah, she's allowed to go to the mikvah on Tisha B'Av, because that's a tvila b'yoma mitzvah. Bein b'tes ba'av, bein b'yom kippurim. Whether it's Tisha B'Av or Yom Kippur, it's permitted for a woman to go into the mikvah. Not b'zman hazeh, but in the brisa it says. But what does the Mishnah mean to say? That a woman is permitted, but everybody else is not. If the Mishnah is talking about hot water, tvila b'chama mi'ika, how is it possible in those days? How is it possible to make a hot mikvah? In order to make a hot mikvah, they had to pour in hot water, and therefore she'uvininu, that would be a pasal mikvah, because you're pouring water from hot urns into the bathtub, and that's not permitted. In those days, it was impossible to make a hot mikvah. So what is it? So Mishnah is not talking about hot water. Elalav, in much Mishnah is talking about bitzainain. It's talking about cold water. And the Mishnah is telling you a woman, v'chayave tvilos, someone who's obligated to go to the mikvah, only that lady is permitted to go into a cold bath. In a shachrina loy, but a regular person, because it's Tisha B'Av, you're not allowed to go into a cold bath. So this is the proof, clear proof, that if you're an Avel or it's Tisha B'Av, you're not allowed to take any shower, not hot or cold. So the Gemara says not true. The Mishnah could be talking about a hot bath, and it's not a pasal mikvah. How's that possible? If you go to Tiberia or around the area, there, not necessarily Tiberia, there are hot springs left over from the time of the Mabul, Rashi says, and that never closed up. So hot spring is coming from the core of the earth. And so that would be a kosher mikvah. If the hot springs come up, you can tovel there. So that's what the Mishnah is talking about. Really, cold water is permitted for everybody. And hot water, only a regular person is not permitted to wash in hot water. But a woman who needs to go to the mikvah, she could be tovel in this hot Tiberia water. So the Gemara says, okay, if it's talking about the hot waters of Tiberia, ihachi ema seifa. Take a look at the end of the brisa. Amar Abschini Kana Kahanim Kedai hu Beis Elokeinu la'abed olav tvila pam achas b'shana. Abschini Sagana Kahanim said, women, don't go to the mikvah. One day a year you don't go to mikvah, and push it off for another day. That's what Rav Chanina Skana Kahanim said. Now, this is an opinion. Let's think about this. The Amrit, if you want to say everybody could go b'tzoyin in mutar, if you want to say that on Tisha B'Av, everybody could go into a cold bath. So yirchatz b'tzoyin, let the woman, instead of going to hot bath, let him go into a cold bath. Why do Rav Chanina Kahanim say, don't go to mikvah, lady? Lady, don't go to the mikvah. Push it off. If everybody on Tisha B'Av is permitted to go into cold water, so why would we tell this lady to push off her mikvah if she can technically go into cold water? So Amar Papa said, no, we're talking about ba'asra de l'shchiach tzoinin. In a place where there's only hot springs coming out. Imagine a place, let's say in the desert, somewhere in Israel, near Tiberia, is this place where there's only hot springs, but you can't get cold water there. So the only way for her to be tovel was to tovel in hot water. So on this, Rav Chanina Skana Kahanim said, lady, push it off a day. Don't go into hot water on Tisha B'Av. But Einechanami, if there would be cold water, she would be permitted to go into cold water. So it's not a clear proof that on Tisha B'Av, one is not permitted to go into cold water. Could be you are allowed to go into cold water bath. It's not such a clear proof from this brisa. Tashema, come in here. When the Mishnah says, when we said in our Mishnah that on those fast days, that you're fasting for rain, and they're strict fast days, when they told you you're not allowed to go to work, they only said you can't work at day, but at night you are permitted to go to work. I want to point out to you in my finger over here that by night you're permitted to work on these fasts. Here's where Rashi says it. Mahacha mashma the belele Tisha B'Av mutar b'malacha. You're allowed to go to work at night on the night of Tisha B'Av after Kinnis. The ain bitul el b'yayim, because the only isser to do work is only during the daytime. But Rashi adds on aval ain befarsamin hadava. Don't tell too many people about it, because people would take advantage. Right after Kinnos, they would go into work. Anyway, so that's what it says. Also bin ilas a sandal, when they said you're not allowed to put on shoes, they only said you're not allowed to put on shoes when you're walking in the city. If you're on the road, mutter, you're permitted to wear shoes. If you're walking out of the city, Noel, you can put your shoes on. When you go into the city, you have to take them off. Also, when they said you're not allowed to wash, you're not allowed to go into a bath. You're not allowed to wash your entire body, like go into like a pool bath. Of washing your hands and feet in the sink, mutter, that would be permitted. Okay. By an avel and somebody who's excommunicated, these two people, an avel, a mourner, not allowed to wash their entire body, but they're allowed to wash their face. Now, let's examine this brisa. My love, what does this brisa say? Akula, it's going, avel is like an avel, those dinim that the Mishnah said apply by an avel, all these dinim, putting on shoes, working, rechitza, apply by avel. Ubamai, what are we talking about? Ilema, if you're talking about b'chamim, that means hot water. And what the Bryce is saying, that you can't wash your whole body in hot water, but you're allowed to wash your face in hot water. Wait a second. Panav yada v'ragel mishari, is an oval permitted to wash his hands and feet with hot water? Well, Rav Sheshes says oval is very strict. Also, it's an oval is not allowed to even stick his one pinky into hot water. So that cannot be. Elalav must be bitzainin, and it's talking about cold water, and therefore you have a complete proof that on when it says you're not allowed to wash, you're not allowed to go, you're not allowed to wash. It's not only, it's talking about cold water, and that even an oval is not allowed to wash cold water, but he's allowed to wash his hands and feet with cold water. And that's what, so that's a proof to what Rav Chisda said. An ovel, not only are you usher in hot water, but you're also usher in cold water. So that seems to be a proof, a raya to what Rav Chisda said. So the Gemara says, "Loi, that's not true. Lo'ilam b'chamen." I will tell you, really, an ovel is only usher to take a hot water bath, and cold water is permitted. But you have a difficulty, and this seems to apply that a menuda of an ovel is allowed to stick their hands and feet into hot water. If this is what the Bryce is talking about, that's not what we're comparing ovel to. Asha'ara kari. The ovel, the part that says that these halachas apply by an ovel, is everything excluding rechitza. In other words, an ovel, the same halachas apply. Can't do work during the daytime, has to put on shoes only if he leaves only if he's entering the city. If he's leaving the city, he can put on shoes. But by rechitza, that halacha does not is very only applies by a taanis tzibur, because by a taanis tzibur we're lenient, but by an ovel, this thing doesn't apply. An ovel cannot stick even a finger in hot water. So it's no proof from that brisa. One more. Tashama, come in here. The Amar Rabba Abba HaKoyin Mishum Rabbi Yossi HaKoyin. Rabba Abba HaKoyin said in the name of Rabbi Yossi HaKoyin, Masa, let me tell you a story. Umeisu Bonav Shal Yossi Bar Chanina. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina lost his kids. Layalenu. And what happened? V'rachatz b'tzoyna, he took a cold bath, kol shiva. During the shiva, he takes a cold bath. Oh, right. Explicit stira to what Rav Chisda said. Rav Chisda said an oval cannot take a cold bath. And here Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina took a cold bath. How do you explain that? So the Gemara says it was a terrible thing there. He had two avelis, one after another. In other words, he sat shiva for one boy, and then the second boy died. So he had 14 days of avelis. So by the second 14, they gave him a leniency that he could take a cold bath. The Tanya, we learned to the Brisa, if someone has an oval one after another, back to back, so then we have a leniency. If his hair grew so much, Mekel Batari could take a razor blade and cut it a little bit. Or you can wash your clothing in water. Amar of Chisda, said, Batar, you could take a razor blade, which is not the normal way to cut your hair on your head. You can't use scissors. B'mayim, you're allowed to wash your clothing in water because but you can't use soap or detergent. But you have to use it. So therefore, they gave him a real leniency. Look, Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, since you lost two of your kids and that the avelis were coming one after another, only you we gave the permission to wash in cold water, nobody else. So now, this is where we're holding. Let's go back and see it again. Avil, Rav Chisda said, Avil, Aser, Bein Bechamin, Bein Betzoinen. He's not allowed to take a hot bath or a cold bath. That's the opinion of who? Rav Chisda. Now, at the bottom of the page comes the counter opinion. Rava says, no, Avil mutter lichatz Betzoinen kol shiva. An Adil is mutter to take cold bath all 7 days. Why? What's the proof? Midi ahava abisra v'achamra. An Avil is allowed to eat meat, allowed to drink wine. So that's, we allowed him. We're not going to make him fast. So therefore, he could also take a cold bath. That's what Rava's opinion is. So the Gemara asks the opposite. Everything that we bought a raya now becomes a question to Rava. Meisvei, let's bring a question. Here comes a question against Rava. Mishnah says, Brisa says, Ein habageres, a young lady who's not yet married, if her father is an aval, if a parent is an aval, the child has to be an aval too. So we have a girl, let's say, who's 18 years old, okay? And her father became an aval, so she also has to be an aval. That's a halacha in respect for your parent. Or even if she was an aval, okay? Let's say she's an aval. She lost her parents. The din is, because she's an 18-year-old girl, we're going to permit her. She's not allowed to noyeg avelos. She has to take showers because we want to make sure she gets married. And therefore, we don't want her, maybe the new prospective guy she's going to marry is going to come in and be turned off. So she's not permitted to be noyeg avelos. Nara, but a nara, if a girl is 12 years old, not yet ready for marriage, Rasha, she must be noyeg avelos. So my love, rechitza, what is this brisa talking about? Taking a shower or taking a bath. Uvamai, what are we talking about over here? Do you say bechamim that we permit a boigres to take a hot bath? Ain ha boigres rashoy, that a boigres must take a hot bath while she's in avel. V'hamar Rav Chizda said, Avel also lahoishit esboi bechamin. An avel can never put his finger in hot water. Hot water is off limits for an avel. Elalav, it must be bitzoinin, in cold water. And what are we saying over here? Only an 18-year-old girl will permit with cold water. But everybody else who's an avel, a 12-year-old girl or anybody else, there's no reason for you to take a cold bath. So everybody else is usher in cold water. So this is a kasha on Rava. Rava said that every avel is permitted in cold water. So the Gemara answers, that's not what the brisa is. The brisa is not talking about taking a bath. Akichel v'apirchas, braiding your hair and putting on makeup. A woman, really, every person can take a cold bath. And therefore, no difference who you are, you can take a cold bath if you're an avel, you can take a cold bath. What a boigres is allowed to do more than the other girls, than the other avel, is she's allowed to put on makeup and braid her hair because we want her to look good for people who want to marry her. That's the only difference between a boigres and a regular girl that's not yet ready for marriage. The Gemara says, Lema Messiah, let's bring a proof to Rava. We see that Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina lost his boys and he took a cold bath during the Shiva. So the Gemara says that's not a proof. Then maybe that was just the exception. When he was an aval one after another. The Tanya takvu aval of zeh hich b'tzar mekel basar mechabes ksusim b'mayim. You're not allowed to do, you have to do a shinui. But someone who has an avelus one after another, we gave the permission to wash in cold water, but maybe every other avel is not permitted to wash in cold water. So that's not a proof to Rava. Okay, so we're holding at this point a very simple way to remember it. Rav Chizda said an avel can't go in hot water or cold water. This opinion of the version of Rava says, no, every avel, I agree with you, can't take a hot bath, but could take a cold bath, even while they're an avel. Ika de Amre, others say, Amar Rava said just the opposite. He agreed with Rav Chizda. Avel also betzoinin kol shiva. An avel is also to go into a cold bath all 7 days. Maishno b'basa v'yayin. So the Gemara asks, why is that different than basa v'yayin? And that's a good question. You tell me that an avel is not allowed to take a cold bath during the Shiva. So why do we say that an avel could eat meat and drink wine? Why is that any different? Why could they eat meat and drink wine and not take a cold bath? So the answer is, Hossam, to eat meat and drink wine is the pachuche pachte hudi ovid. It helps him ease anxiety. So we allow him to eat meat and wine because we don't want him to be totally nervous. But taking a cold bath, they didn't give you the disposition and to take a cold bath. Lema Messiah, ein habagaris rushoy lenavel atzma. Bagaris is not allowed to take a bath. He's not allowed to noyeg avelis. Ha nara rashoy, but a nara, a young girl, supposed to be noyeg avelis. In other words, an 18-year-old girl has to not be noyeg avelis. But what are we talking about? Ilema b'chamim. Do we allow a young girl, an 18-year-old girl, to go into a hot bath? Ein bagaris rashoy. She's allowed to. There's no avelis by her regarding taking a hot bath. An oval, no matter what, can't stick their finger in hot water. Elalav, this must be talking about Bitzoinin in a cold water, and was saying that only an 18-year-old girl could go into cold water, but a regular oval, a young girl, 12-year-old girl who's not ready to get married, she can't take any cold water bath. So that's a proof to what this version of Rava, that oval is also even in cold water, all 7. So the Gemara says, that's not the topic of the Brisa. The Brisa is talking about not even bathing. Akichel v'pirkas. It's talking about braiding your hair and putting on makeup. Really, every oval could be taking a cold bath on during the Shiva. But the difference, a boigris, an 18-year-old girl, she's allowed to even braid her hair and put on makeup because we want the boys to be attracted to her. But nobody else gets that disposition. Amar Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda said, Zoysa Meres, from here you could learn, Avil also betachpoisis kol shiva, and Avil is not allowed to do laundry all 7 days, right? We say it over here that that if only, just like a girl, normal girl who's not ready to get married cannot put on makeup and cannot braid her hair. It's also the same idea. You can't wash your clothing because having nice pressed clothing makes you look attractive. So a regular Avil, who's not ready to get married, of course, not a girl, a young girl, is not permitted to do laundry during their shiva. The hilchas of the halacha is avel also lichas kol gufoy bein b'chaim and bein mitzrayim. Here's the halacha: if you're an avel, you're not allowed to take a bath in hot water or a cold bath, kol shiva, for all 7 days. But aval panav yad v'raglav, if you're just washing your hands and feet, bechamin also, you're not allowed to use hot water, but soinin mutter, but with cold water that's permitted. Avo, but lasuch, to anoint yourself with oil, like enjoyment oil. Afila kolshu also, even a little bit is not permitted. Re'im la'abed es hazuma, but if you have this oil to like take away sweat, like a deodorant, that's mutter, that's permitted. So that is the sugya of an avel and an Tisha B'Av, which is the same idea of can they wash in hot water and in cold water. It seems that they're not allowed to do anything. Okay. Yeah. One more. Let's do just one more minute over here, just to get into the sugya over here. Agav, I'm just thinking to myself, taking a cold shower is very healthy to the body. Right. Okay. Just one more thing. So loisa the tanisa hechemat kirim. Where do you mention the anenu tefillah? So where do you mention the anenu tefillah? So at the Barei Rav Yehuda, Rav Yitzchak Barei, Rav Yehuda was taking a walk with Rav Yitzchak, his son. Rav Yehuda is the father, and he's walking with his son, B'darash, and he's giving a lecture to his son. You know how you walk with your own son? You give him a lecture. He said, Yachad shekibel al tanis. If a Yachad decided to make a tanis, mispalish a tanis, he has to pray the anenu tefillah. The Heichen Amra, when do you say it? Ben goyel l'roifei. You make up a new bracha between Goyal Yisrael and Roifei Chayle Am Yisrael, and Nenu. You say Anenu, and you make a new bracha. So, like you added a 19th bracha in Shemoneh Esrei. Maskev l'Rav Yitzchak v'chiyachet kavei bracha la'atzmai. If you're the only one that's fasting, can you add a new bracha into your Shemoneh Esrei? That doesn't make sense. The son disagreed with his father. Elam Rav Yitzchak, Rav Yitzchak said by Shemei Tefillah, by Shemei Tefillah, right before Shemei Tefillah. That's when you put the Anenu Tefillah. And that's the way we have it in our Siddur. Let's do one kasha, one teretz, and then we'll end. Mesave. The Mishnah, the Brisa says, so what you just learned is that, if you're a Yachid and you have a private fast, you put Anenu by Shemei Tefillah. So the Gemara says, Mesave. Ein ben Yachid l'tzibur. The Brisa says there's no difference if you're a Yachid that's fasting or tzibur fast. A Yachid davens 18 blessings, and this one, the tzibur, davens 19 blessings. That means they add anenu. My Yachid or my tzibur. What does it mean, a Yachid, and what does it mean, a tzibur? Ilema doesn't mean Yachid mamish with tzibur mamish. Yachid means he's the only one that's fasting, and tzibur means shatz. The shliach, you have the whole entire congregation fasting, and the shliach tzibur is leading the prayer. So hanit shai esrei. Does a Shliach Tzibur only daven 19 brachas? When it's a public fast, they added extra brachas in Shemoneh Esrei. We'll learn about that in this Masechta. So even if it's a Shliach Tzibur, you're supposed to daven 24, not 19. You add, it's like 6 brachas in middle of Shemoneh Esrei. The Brisa must mean to say, Ein ben yochid the Kibbalah of Taanis yochid, liyochid Kibbalah of Taanis Sibra. You're the only one that's fasting. But sometimes you accept upon yourself a mini fast, an individual fast. And sometimes you want to be strict on yourself and say that you want to makabel upon yourself like the tzibur fast. Your own individual fast should have the strictness of a tzibur fast. What's the difference? The Bryce is telling you, when you're makabel a tainis yochid, then you only daven 18 brachas. But if you're a yochid and you say you want a tzibur fast, then you can add an extra bracha. Shma mina, from this proof, yochid kaveya bracha la'atzmai. So here, you're the only one that's fasting, and you can make up your fast to be so strict that you'll be able to add an extra bracha to Shemoneh Esrei. So it's a proof, not right like Rav Yitzchak, that even if you're an individual, the power of an individual is to be able to add another bracha to Shemoneh Esrei. So the Gemara says, "Loy, that's not the proof from the Brisa. The olam eimelach shliach tzibur. Really, we're talking about the shliach tzibur. The kakashalach shliach tzibur esem arba matzlei. Are you going to question if it's a regular whole group that's davening, and if it's the whole tzibur that's fasting, there should be 24 brachas in Shemoneh Esrei? That's not true. The Gimel Taanis Rishonos, by the first 3 fast of a rain fast, not the 13, but the first 3 of the 13, the Lake Esram bar, they didn't add those extra brachas to Shemoneh Esrei. So the Gemara says, "V'la of bein bein ketani, ein bein gimel Rishonos to gimel soyis, elish be'elim maturim basiyas malacha ve'elu asurim basiyas malacha halachav dalet zev zeh." The Mishnah says that the first 3 fasts are similar to the next 3 fasts, in that the only difference is that the first 3 fasts you can do work at night, you can eat at night, and the second 3 fasts you have the 4 inuyim. The 5 inuyim are also on the second fast, but it seems to imply that regarding adding the 24 brachas, the extra brachas to Shemoneh Esrei, even by the first 3 fasts, we add the 24 brachas to Shemoneh Esrei. So Gemara says, Tana v'shayar, the Brisa, our Mishnah left off, enachanami, by the first 3 fasts, we don't add any brachas to Shemoneh Esrei. My shayar, the high shayar, what do we leave out? The suv or ein ben ketani, elatani bisuri kamar betfilos lekamari, and this is where we'll stop. That our Mishnah is only talking about the isurim of the fast, but not talking about the prayers. Enechanami, there's a big difference between the first 3 fasts and the next 10. By the first 3 fasts, they didn't add any brachas to Shemoneh Esrei. They didn't add 624 brachas. By the next 10, they added brachas to Shemoneh Esrei. So again, that was just to answer up this brisa. But what you walk away from here is the bottom line is that when a yochid accepts upon himself a fast, so you don't say anenu as an extra bracha, but you slip it into Shemeya Tefillah. By Shema Koleinu, you slip it in. And that's the way it's written in the Siddur, even on a Tzibur fast, because sometimes you daven Shemoneh Esrei by yourself, you slip in the Anenu by Shemeya Tefillah, but when the Chazan goes over, repeats the Shemoneh Esrei, he puts Anenu as a separate bracha between Gal Yisrael and Rafa'enu. Okay.
You got quick questions, Baruch?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, question number 1. You mentioned in a past Gemara that Trump was friendly to Yidden, like there was a Nebuchadnezzar that was friendly to Yidden, or an Achashverosh. Which Gemara was that? Do you remember any of that? You mentioned.
I will. A few dafim ago in the Agadah Gemara, it's coming back to me. There was a friendly king. I'll get you the story. I will get you the story and email it to you. There was a friendly king.
Yeah,
was very interested in Jewish.
Let me ask you a second, Charlotte, because I want you to.
She became a ger. She became a ger or something like that. Right. It's at the end of a page. I'll find it for you. Yeah.
Great. By the way, the sound has been slurring while you were speaking before. Throughout the shir, so the sound was breaking up.
Oh.
Can you hear?
Oh, it has to do with
the sound was.
Yes.
No, don't worry. Baruch, I keep seeing wife being born in Uruguay, but she's Dov's sister, correct?
She's Dov's niece. She's the
To what?
niece. She's
My wife is the niece. Is a niece. My wife is a niece, not Dov's sister.
the niece of
Yeah.
that. You told me so many times, and I forget every time. I like,
Yeah.
Hey. Very good, very good. So,
Good night.
good night,
Good night,
brother.
everybody. I get the nacht, everybody. Sorry about the sound. It'll be
Good night.
better
Good
next
night.
week.
Good
It's a
night.
shame. Have Freilich and Chanukah.
Not a problem.
Good
Yes.
Freilich and
And good
Chanukah.
Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos, everyone.